Hey everybody, welcome to the workshop. In today's episode, I'm continuing on with the shop build, if you will, and the next thing is to get the tools ready and also having to get everything maneuvered around. Now I've been working on adjusting things, putting things in different places, trying to figure out what is going to be the best for my shop. That's still a work in progress. However, for right now, part of this is going to be to get the heart of the workshop, the table saw, back in working order. So first thing I'm going to have to do is clean it out, clean off the top, and I'm going to have to do a little extra to the top because right in here and here, some spots here, during the move, I ended up getting some rust on it. Now, before I moved, I actually did treat this cast iron top. I used the product called Carbon Method, I think is what it's called. I don't even know where I put it at the moment. I'll have to find it. Oh, there it is. So I used the carbon cleaner, I used the carbon coat, and I also used the carbon glide. And I used it on this top, which is the center section. I do have the right wing. I don't have the left wing on it. I just have the one that came with it. And then I also have the cast iron router tabletop as well. And I used it on the entire thing. The wing and the router top seemed to be doing fine, but the center section here ended up getting some rust. So I don't know if that was me doing a bad job of applying the product or what happened, because during the move, I actually had the movers to move this table, the saw. So I didn't personally do it. There were things stacked on top of it, like cardboard boxes, but there was nothing wet, there was no chemicals, so I don't know what happened to get this area rusted, but it is what it is, so now we have to treat it. So, and I also want to get everything cleaned up and treated as well before going on to the next step, because in another video, I've got all the components I need for the router, I've got the lift, I've got the fence, I've got the box, and I've got a whole new router as well, and so I'm going to be installing all of that. So the first thing to do is to make sure this thing is cleaned out, cleaned off, prepped, and ready to go so I can go on to the next step. And give me a little grace here with all the boxes. I've gotten most everything unpacked and all, and I'm going to be getting rid of the boxes, taking them to be recycled, or find somebody who can use them. So I am still getting everything cleaned up, but for right now, we're focusing on the table saw right now. So stick with me and we'll get this thing cleaned up. All right, now that I've got it all cleaned off, the next step is I'm just going to be using some regular WD-40 to get it cleaned off, make sure it's good, and then I'm going to be using the same stuff along with a maroon pad and my 5-inch orbital sander here, and I went ahead and cut a piece off and stuck it to it to be ready for it. And it's easy to forget to do your channels here. Don't forget those too. All right, first pass is looking pretty good. I can definitely see it making a difference in some of the spots. This right here has definitely got more work to have to do, so I'm just going to have to keep on working. All right, everything is looking a whole lot better. Yes, there's going to be some little spots here that are not going to come out unless you really want to get in and, you know, work on it with some sandpaper and really take material off, but that's not what I want to do. I just wanted to get it out. Right now, if I move my finger over it, it's smooth. I run my fingernail over it, it's still smooth. So that means I've gotten it down, and the discoloration really doesn't mean anything at this point, but it is looking and feeling so much better. It's smooth to the touch. I don't feel anything. And so everything's looking good. So now I'm going to move over to the router table, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. It's not as bad. It doesn't have any pitting on it or any rust. So it's just going to get a quick clean, and then I'll come back and we'll prep the surface to be used again. Okay, we're back. Everything has been sanded and thoroughly cleaned, wiped down the best that I can possibly get it, nice and clean to the touch. So the next thing we want to do is we've now prepped the surface. What am I talking about? We want to get the surface set up for success. We want it to be long living, especially considering this is cast iron. If you've never used cast iron tools before, tabletops like this, I used to think that they weren't anything really that special, but since I started using them, quite honestly, I love them. So if you have the means to be able to get cast iron tabletops, it doesn't have to be a Harvey table saw, although I am absolutely loving this table saw. So far, there is nothing about it that I don't like. So I want this thing to be looking good for a long time. Now, as I said, I have already used the carbon method already, and I ended up getting some rust on it despite that in a couple of places. Now, like I said, I will absolutely be the first to chalk it up to operator error. Either I didn't get the surface clean enough, I didn't apply it properly, could have had a dry spot here, or maybe there was just something wet that got set down on top of here that I was just not aware of. I never saw anything wet get set on top of here. Everything that was on top of here for the time was all dry, but I don't know that. So I definitely want to give Carbon Method, which hashtag not sponsored by them, a chance. So I've got this thing prepped up. You're not going to get any better prep than this right here after sanding it down with the maroon pad. So it is absolutely clean. And so first thing we want to do is start off with their cleaner. So According to the bottle, it's majority alcohol. So it should evaporate off whatever's left on there. So this is our prepping stage. We get everything nice and clean and dried off properly. All right, now it's been thoroughly cleaned. I think the instructions say to let it sit for a minute or two just to make sure all the alcohol in the cleaner has evaporated. And it looks like I've used it all too. So the next part is the carbon coat itself. So it says to shake it thoroughly. There is a little ball in there to help it get mixed up well, and it comes with this microfiber applicator as well. Now the instructions, if I remember correctly, say to put it on in one direction and then go back in the other direction, crosshatch, just to make sure that you get it coated thoroughly. And then we have to let it dry for about 5 minutes, something to that effect, and after it dries, then we can come back with the microfiber cloth and then we can wipe off the residue. All right, we'll come back in about 5 or so minutes. All right, now that it's been about 5 minutes or so, now I'm just going to take the microfiber cloth and just buff off all the excess. Okay, and the last thing is the carbon glide. Now, while the carbon method is supposed to protect it, this right here is supposed to help it to be smooth and glide. So it's kind of like filling in any kind of pits or anything that's naturally inside the metal, so that way your wood can glide across. So and I'm just rubbing this to try to get it all completely even, and then I think this stuff is supposed to dry for a couple of minutes as well. Okay. And while that is drying, I am also going to give a little love to the ways here for the fence. So I'm just going to use a little paste wax, and on the outside and inside there are little plastic bushings here that ride along this area here. And so I want to be able to keep them clean, which I've already cleaned them, but I also want to keep them lubed too, because you can even see a little scratch mark pattern right here where the little adjuster right here rides. So I'm just going to put a little bit of paste wax on here, on the top, on the inside, and on the front side, just to give it a little something to help it glide as well. Because if you feel this metal on here, it is a little rough. So if we can give it a little help, like I say, we're taking care of our tools, let's take care of it all the way. Let's just not do a halfway job on it. Especially when you spend a whole lot of money on your tools. Now, luckily this right here is about half the cost of a saw stop. Now, I do understand it doesn't have the saw stop thingy protection technology on it, but ultimately, what is the biggest cause of table saw injuries is kickback. And why is that? Because a lot of people don't use the riving knife or the splitter guard or the guard on top. So by you taking care of your tools, you being aware and conscious of what you're doing, you're going to be a lot safer than just having the saw stop technology. Now, saw stop technology is awesome, but it's also expensive. And like I said, this table saw is excellent and half the price of a saw stop. So sometimes you can't always sit there and say it can be an all or nothing. Sometimes you have to be able to get what you can for you and your situation. And let's face it, things are expensive nowadays. So all right, next we'll take another microfiber cloth and just buff the excess off on this as well. All right, this job is complete. I can definitely tell a difference with the carbon glide on here. It definitely is smoother. When you rub your fingernail across it, you can still feel some of the tool marks that are in it from manufacturing, but it is a lot less than before I put it on there. So, nice and smooth. So, thank you so much for coming along with me as we get our tools prepped up to be ready to start making new and awesome projects. Next step for the table saw, like I said, is we're going to end up installing a whole new setup for a router table, and I'm really looking forward to that. So stay tuned for that project. Well, I hope you found value in this. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all again next time in the workshop.